Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, allow me to begin with a reality that shakes the world tonight. Qatar has announced that a second powerful and devastating attack will be carried out on Israel tonight. This is not just a headline, this is a warning to every capital, every leader, and every citizen who believes the Middle East is merely a regional crisis. What we are witnessing is a conflict whose tremors extend far beyond the deserts of the Gulf and the shores of the Mediterranean. It is about power, empire, and the crumbling foundations of a global order built on capitalism and militarism. When Qatar, a small yet enormously wealthy state, declares an attack of this magnitude, it signals more than military might. It signals desperation, defiance, and a refusal to remain silent under conditions it perceives as intolerable. Israel, backed by the United States and much of the Western world, is not facing just another adversary. It is facing the collective anger of decades of displacement, occupation, and the deep inequalities of the global economic system. The real story here is not simply missiles or drones. It is the economics of empire. For decades, the Middle East has been treated as a chessboard, its oil, its gas, its land, and its people used to feed the machinery of global capitalism. Wars erupt not out of thin air, but because powerful nations profit from the weapons sold, the resources extracted, and the rivalries fueled. Every attack is both a tragedy for the innocent and a business opportunity for those who manufacture bombs, tanks, and surveillance systems. Tonight's announcement must also be understood in the context of shifting global alliances. Qatar is not acting in isolation. Look east, and you see China building trade routes, financing infrastructure, and extending influence. Look north, and you see Russia still defiant, using every opportunity to weaken U.S. dominance. In this new world order, Israel becomes not only a regional actor, but a symbol of the Western Bloc. Qatar's strike, therefore, becomes a message. The monopoly of power is ending, and the empire is no longer unchallenged. But let us also be clear. The victims of this confrontation will not be the politicians in Doha or Tel Aviv. They will be the families huddled in fear, the children who cannot sleep to the sound of sirens, the workers whose futures are erased in seconds. Capitalism has turned war into a perpetual cycle. First, the buildup of weapons, then their use, and finally, the rebuilding of what was destroyed, all at a profit to the few, all at a cost to the many. Qatar's announcement that a second powerful and devastating attack will be carried out on Israel tonight is not just a breaking news item. It is a turning point that forces us to think differently about global politics. Why? Because when a nation as small as Qatar takes such a bold step, the act cannot be reduced to mere military calculations. It is a declaration that the old order, in which Western-backed powers had the uncontested upper hand, is beginning to fracture. This is not only about missiles flying through the night sky. It is about the erosion of an empire's monopoly on violence, strategy, and influence. It is about a region telling the world that it will no longer remain silent, and that its voice, however small in size, can carry global consequences. Think of it, Qatar is geographically tiny, a dot on the map compared to Israel or its Western allies, but it possesses immense financial power due to its vast natural gas reserves. For decades, Qatar's role was largely confined to being a broker, a financier, a mediator. Yet tonight's announcement pulls it out of the shadows and puts it directly on the front line of confrontation. That is the hook the world cannot ignore. When the smallest player challenges the biggest structures of power, the symbolism alone is explosive. It tells us that wealth, ambition, and global frustration can converge into something far greater than size or geography would suggest. And here is where the deeper analysis comes in. Israel is not just another state in the Middle East. It is the keystone of Western influence in the region. It is the partner that Washington, London, and Brussels rely upon to maintain a balance favorable to their interests. Any attack on Israel, especially one as direct as Qatar's threat, becomes, by extension, a challenge to the West itself. It is no longer merely an exchange of rockets between regional rivals. It is a political statement aimed at the foundations of a global system that has long been dominated by the United States and its allies. This is why Qatar's move feels different. It represents defiance not only of Israel, but of the very structure of global dominance. The question we must ask is why now? What is it about this particular moment that pushes Qatar to abandon its cautious diplomacy and embrace open confrontation? The answer lies partly in the shifting balance of power worldwide. The rise of China as an economic superpower, Russia's unrelenting defiance of Western sanctions, and the growing exhaustion of US hegemony create a new context. In such a context, even a small state can act with greater boldness because it knows it is no longer alone. It senses the cracks in the armor of the old empire, and into those cracks it pushes with force. Qatar's move is not isolated. It is embedded in this broader global realignment. Let us not underestimate the power of this signal. History has shown us that it is often the smallest actors, the ones dismissed as insignificant, who ignite the sparks that set empires ablaze. Think of Sarajevo in 1914, when a small assassination spiraled into a world war. Think of Vietnam in the 1960s, where a small nation reshaped American politics forever. Qatar's announcement tonight belongs to that tradition of moments when the margins of power suddenly become the center. This is what makes it so dangerous and so telling at the same time. And yet, beyond the politics and the military calculations, there is another layer. The very act of challenging Israel so openly is an act of psychological warfare. It tells not only Tel Aviv, but Washington as well, your monopoly is over, your uncontested dominance is fading, and the fear you once commanded is no longer absolute. That kind of message cannot be measured in body counts or damage reports. It is measured in confidence, in boldness, in the willingness of other nations to follow the same path. Once one state defies the empire, others begin to imagine they too can take the leap. So, as the world waits tonight to see whether the threat materializes into destruction, the deeper meaning is already clear. Qatar has used its announcement as a weapon in itself. It has told the world that even the smallest state can shake the tallest towers of power, that the monopoly of empire is cracking, and that the global stage is no longer scripted by the West alone. That is the story beneath the headlines, and that is why this moment matters far more than the immediate devastation it promises. War has always been presented to the public as a matter of national security, survival, or defense of freedom. But if we strip away the speeches, the flags, and the rhetoric, we find something far more disturbing. War is profitable for the few and devastating for the many. That is the real story behind Qatar's announcement of another devastating attack on Israel, and it is the reality that governments and corporations hope you never look too closely at. The bombs may fall thousands of miles away, but the profits they generate are deposited into accounts much closer to home. This is the great contradiction of our time. The suffering of millions becomes the wealth of a handful. Here is the hook that should grip us all. Every missile launched, every fighter jet deployed, every building destroyed is not only an act of violence, it is also a transaction. Behind the flames and smoke stand defense contractors, lobbyists, and shareholders waiting for the quarterly reports to reflect their gains. The names are familiar: Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, giants of the arms industry whose fortunes rise with every escalation. To them, tonight's announcement from Qatar is not only a political shift, but a business opportunity. Conflict means contracts, and contracts mean billions. It is a system in which peace is bad for business and war becomes the most lucrative market of all. Consider the human cost. Families across Israel and Palestine brace for the terror of the night sky, unsure if their homes will still be standing tomorrow. Parents try to calm their children as sirens wail, while workers and farmers see their livelihoods reduced to rubble. For them, there is no profit, no reward, only fear and loss. Yet, at the very same moment, in corporate boardrooms thousands of miles away, executives prepare to celebrate soaring stock prices fueled by that same destruction. The cruel irony is impossible to miss. The suffering of the many is converted into dividends for the few. But the machinery of profit extends beyond the battlefield. Once the dust settles, reconstruction begins, and with it another wave of contracts. Corporations are paid to rebuild the same infrastructure that their weapons helped to destroy. Roads, hospitals, and schools, once reduced to rubble, become sites of new investment, financed often by international loans that burden the very populations who have already lost everything. War is not just an episode of destruction, it is a cycle, a business model, carefully designed to maximize profits at every stage, from arming to bombing to rebuilding. This cycle reveals the deeper sickness of the global capitalist system. Under capitalism, everything becomes a commodity, even death. Human suffering is not an unfortunate byproduct, it is part of the business plan. The wars we witness in the Middle East are not isolated tragedies, but central features of an economy that thrives on instability. The longer the conflicts drag on, the more weapons are sold, the more contracts are signed, and the more the financial markets reward the dealers of death. Peace in such a world is not merely elusive, it is unprofitable. And here is the question that must haunt us: who benefits and who pays? The answer is stark. The beneficiaries are the corporations and the political elites who maintain close ties with them. ensuring that foreign policy decisions always align with economic interests. The ones who pay are the ordinary people, workers, students, mothers, and children, whose futures are stolen to sustain an economy built on endless war. This is not speculation, it is reality. We have seen it in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Libya, and now in the new flashpoints spreading across the region. When Qatar declares an attack on Israel, the world sees a geopolitical clash. But lurking behind that clash is the silent applause of markets that thrive on volatility. Stocks surge, contracts expand, and the empire's war machine grinds forward. Meanwhile, the voices of those calling for peace are drowned out by the roar of jets and the rhetoric of leaders who themselves are tied to the profits of militarism. It is a cruel theater where the script is written not by the people, but by the balance sheets of corporations. That is why this moment should not just be analyzed as another chapter in the conflict between two nations. It should be seen as a mirror held up to the global system itself, exposing the ugly truth that the lives of millions are collateral damage in the pursuit of profit. War has become the most reliable investment in the modern economy. And until that reality changes, announcements like Qatar's will continue to echo across the world, not just as warnings of violence, but as reminders of a system that rewards destruction while punishing peace. So tonight, as Qatar promises devastation and Israel braces for impact, let us ask ourselves, how long can this system endure? How long can we allow a global economy that thrives on conflict, that feeds on inequality, that rewards destruction while punishing peace? If we do not demand change, if we do not imagine an alternative based on cooperation, democracy, and justice, then tonight's headlines will be tomorrow's routine. I close with this. History teaches us that empires fall, that no system lasts forever. The question before us is not whether capitalism and militarism will collapse. It is what will replace them. Will it be another cycle of violence, or will it be a new foundation built by the people, for the people, where war is no longer profitable and peace is no longer impossible? That choice, brothers and sisters, is ours to make.